The absolute best fantasy football podcast in existence.
So I'll say this, not to say that I disagree, but
I disagree.
Oh my God.
Presented by Broadway Sports.
all right, flexors ready. I love that intro music. Welcome into the Flex Fantasy Overtime Special Edition. We're here. Normally what we do on these nights, we record our YouTube. It's a little weird week with Baltimore and Pittsburgh starting so late or going off so late in the week. And we decided to do a little bit different this week. And instead of doing our usual sit starts and advice, we'll give advice in a different way. Still bring this good show to y'all. We'll still have the YouTube out there tomorrow for this if you want to go back and rewatch it. Still have the podcast, however you want to consume it. But we want to get those questions in. We'll cover a few things first, but we wanted to talk about the fantasy playoff push and everything like that. So joining me is Justin Graver at Titans Film Room. We're Robert Greenlaw at Rob on Broadway. Zach Lyons messing with the TV. He's got the Claypool repairman coming, I guess, at F Word Spot. Hello, sir. And myself at Ryan on Broadway. Welcome in. We got some viewers coming in. Greenlaw, help me out here. Do you see Graver at all on your screen? Because there's a black box there.
I do see Graver on my screen. I also see Zach watching Hulu, which is interesting.
Well, that's Zach's plan for this fantasy overtime show. Is he's just going to be watching Hulu the whole time. Looks like he's playing a movie. This is going to be interesting to see what comes up here. You're still muted, Zach.
I don't think he even knows we're live, to be honest.
No, he does. He turned around and looked at it. So we got some viewers coming in. So get those questions loaded up. We will get to them here in a little bit. But welcome in to the live Fantasy Flex version of our show, Fantasy Overtime, I should say. We also have the Fantasy Overtime at 10:30 Central on Sundays, primarily with Zach and Justin for your fantasy questions, last-minute stuff. So to get into it, boys, let's get into what we normally do and the what have we learned here recently. Just cover that, get everybody a chance to get their questions in. So, Greenlaw, we'll start with you. What have you learned?
Wait a minute. Can you hear me first off?
Yes, we can hear you.
Second off, on Periscope, someone named Simp Biscuit is in the chat.
Greatest name ever.
Simp Biscuit is a regular.
Is he? I've never seen Simp Biscuit before in my life.
He's a round table and halftime regular, man.
The league. Come on. Gotta have it. It's fantasy football.
Oh, look at Taco.
I'm fine. I'm fine with the league. I'm fine with it. It's a great show. So, Greenlaw, let's go back to you. What have you learned? What did you learn? Well, Zach throws his whole computer on the ground.
Woo.
I mean,
that was just a microphone.
Good night. Off to a great start so far.
Hey, at least you can see me, and I keep moving. Unlike what happened at the halftime or the post game Sunday afternoon roundtable after with Ryan.
What a shit show.
I see that he's still in his dungeon. Is that a dungeon?
Part of the problem was we could see Ryan throughout the entire thing, including when he was trying to illuminate Jonathan Bohr.
Well, technology is fantastic because I just couldn't get the microphone to start connecting again, which is just fantastic. So you can see me and just watch all my frustration with all this technology. I stared at it. It just didn't work. It's a little shout out to anybody else who's listened to the show in the past. So
live television, folks.
Live television.
You never know what's going to happen.
That's exactly right. So let's get into it, Greenlaw. Let's try to start some fantasy talk here. What have you learned for the fifth time?
Well, I learned Younghoe Koo is one of the most valuable players you can have in fantasy. He scored 21 points this past weekend, which was more than Juju Smith, Jerry Jeudy, the Browns defense, Alvin Kamara, and Kyler Murray all combined. So, I mean, there's not much to argue with. He is a weapon. He's not just a kicker, he's a weapon. He's the Travis Kelce of kickers.
Yeah, but that Alvin Kamara thing, just on a side note while you're talking about the kick,
please let's not talk about it.
How, it's just amazing. Like, I think Alvin Kamara is one of the most dynamic weapons in the NFL, or he can be, but he just has disappeared with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill thinks that he's the weapon. He's going to do everything. And he's just forgotten that the Saints even have Alvin Kamara. It's got to be frustrating for owners, especially as you approach the playoffs. You just got to hope that Breeze comes back pretty quickly off the IR once he's eligible and that he's able to go and not have any kind of issues.
How many owners do you think are going, Alvin? That's an Alvin and the Chipmunks reference, guys.
Yeah.
Bringing it tonight.
They're yelling about Taysom and not Alvin, to be honest with you.
Probably wrong demographic. I know that Ryan probably got it, but
yeah, I did get it. I couldn't find
that's you young bucks over there.
I got it. It's just crazy to me that Sean Payton thinks Taysom Hill is a quarterback, but I mean they're 2-0 with Taysom Hill as a starter. Granted, they had potentially the easiest matchup in NFL history this past weekend, going up against a team that found out the day before a game that they didn't get to play a quarterback, but it's just crazy. I mean, they got the Falcons defense the week before, which is apparently really, really, really good now after being terrible. I don't know. I don't know what Taysom Hill's, that whole thing is just mind-boggling.
He had under 100 yards passing. I think he had 78 yards passing this week. He was horrible. And he's targeted Alvin Kamara one time, or one reception the last 2 weeks. It's
for what,
so
minus
bad.
2 yards, I think?
It is minus 2 yards.
You should be locked up in quarterback jail for having that kind of weapon and not using him. That's just criminal. It's awful, as a matter of fact. So yeah, Justin is frozen on my screen. Hopefully he's coming through the reshoot a little.
It is. I'm watching it. That's
Perfect.
why my message said that.
Cool. But not on the live show. If I could read a whole sentence, that'd be better. So excuse my Alabama education anyway. So, Graver, what have you learned?
I learned that the Las Vegas Raiders are terrible frauds and that anyone who trusts them deserves what they get, including me. I trusted them big time this past week, and wow, did I pay for that. I mean, goodness gracious. What I really learned from this matchup is that sometimes a bad spot is a bad spot, and I kind of ignored the signs. Like, I read about this earlier in the week and kind of dismissed it, that the Raiders might not be able to get up for this game coming off a big matchup against Kansas City that obviously went all out preparing for. They came so close to winning, couldn't hold Kansas City out of the end zone on the final drive, and so they lost that game. Coming back the next week is, a little bit of a hangover off of all that, and Derek Carr just did not show up for this game. Some of the worst turnovers, that fumble he had was like, I mean, yeah, you're getting sacked, but come on, man. It's just unbelievable. So pay attention to the spots. That's what I'm taking away from this week. Like, if a team's in a tough spot, don't assume that just because Atlanta's been terrible and that Vegas has been on the up and up that they're going to bounce back from a tough game. I don't know. We're
all out on Vegas now, right? At least
after that show, I mean, they cost me. My wallet's hurting. My fantasy lineups are hurting. It's just.
You know what this means, though, right? Now that you're out on them is when they're going to just go on a tear here towards the end of the season and be reliable because we're all out on them. It seems to be how they've been. So I think we were out on them early in the season, and they gave Kansas City a pretty good run.
Yeah.
At some point in time, so we're like, oh, well, maybe they are a good team. It's weird. I mean, the quarterbacks there aren't great. It's just, it's not a great situation out in Las Vegas. Other than I'm sure it's a great place to live and lots of stuff to do. So maybe they're distracted. I'm not sure.
I will say I was out on Carson Wentz fully and completely on fantasy overtime, and that did not undo itself. Like, Carson Wentz is freaking terrible, and I was right to be out on him, and everyone, I believe, is probably out on him by now. But just to go against the as soon as you're out on them, they'll screw you kind of thing, I think Carson Wentz is just toast.
Yeah, and from a fantasy perspective, I mean, you're talking about Travis Fulgham, that you could really count on him, and then they don't utilize him, and it just I don't understand what they're doing there either. And then, but on that situation with quarterbacks, just while we're talking about it, what is Jalen Hurts that much worse than what you're seeing on the field, or would you just give him a chance and see, because here's the thing. It can't get much worse. And plus, maybe Wentz just needs a break. I'm not sure he's not working through it. I'm not sure what the answer is, but don't you at some point in time you're getting some practice reps. Don't you have to maybe get him some chance in game live to see what he can do for extended periods of time?
Well, let this little strange looking guy tell you what you should feel about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is probably better than Carson Wentz, but he's not getting paid like Carson Wentz. Frank Reich has to go with Carson Wentz until why even put in Jalen Hurts? Like, what is the point? Get him injured, you break his soul and his will to live, because it's what you've already done with Carson Wentz, right? Like, there is no benefit to put in Jalen Hurts at this point behind this offensive line with this horrible offense. It's bad coaching. Yeah, I get it, because maybe he can win you a few games, and maybe you get into the playoffs at 5-11, or actually they'd be 5-10-1. But it doesn't really matter. And here's why. Because they're going to lose anyway. The New York Giants are better. The Washington football team is better. Do not put in Jalen Hurts at this point. Start fresh. Start over new. You're going to have a new offensive line next year. You're going to have probably a lot of people out of this lineup. Just give it time and don't break his spirit right off the bat because he's not used to losing.
Yeah, but Jalen Hurts, I mean, at some point in time, I guess what I'm saying is that Philadelphia doesn't need to waste him on the bench either because he's never going to play. But I agree, he's not going to get a fair shake if he goes in now. It'd be kind of weird. But just from a standpoint of performance is all I was getting at.
And let me say this. If it was anywhere else but Philly, I would say go ahead and put him in because you guys see what the kid's got. But if you put him in and he sucks, Philly is going to hate him. And they're going to demand that you draft another quarterback. Philly is a horrible spot for Jalen Hurts, by the way, as far as the fan base. They don't deserve Jalen Hurts. You just got to be patient and not worry about Jalen Hurts. In fact, if you're in a dynasty league or if you're in a keeper league and you are desperate for a quarterback, I would pick up Jalen Hurts and keep him for next year because I think Jalen Hurts will be good.
I disagree with your premise. And I think that the
That's
Eagles
fine.
are...
Just ruin a kid's career. That's fine.
I don't think you're going to ruin his career. Yeah, the Eagles' offensive line is terrible, but Jalen Hurts is a mobile guy. I mean, he's not even really a great thrower. He's a mobile quarterback, if nothing else. And right now, the way that
Carson Wentz, he's a mobile quarterback because he's definitely not a throwing quarterback.
Yeah, but the way Wentz is playing right now, the Eagles still, I know it's crazy that they have 3 wins and they still have a chance to win the division, but Carson Wentz is dragging them down so much that I feel like you spent a second-round pick on this guy. Let's see if he's worth anything. So get him out there to see what you got. And B, go try to win the division because what you're doing right now is not working.
But are you going to get a fair assessment if you put him in now? You're not going to get a fair assessment out
you may
of
not,
Jalen
but
Hurts.
If
and
he
this
plays,
coaching staff, are we going to trust this coaching staff?
Not at all.
Shitty as fuck to actually decide, oh, well, Jalen Hurts looks really good or Jalen Hurts looks really bad because they think Carson Wentz has looked good all fucking year. I'm just saying it's not fair to Jalen Hurts, and I know you hate Jalen Hurts and want his career to be derailed so he cannot feed his family. But you gotta. I am a person. I am a person. He is a person. I'm a people person.
Let me hit you with
this.
Want him what if
succeed?
What if he is really good and elevates the rest of this horrible surrounding cast? Like, if he's bad,
think Jesus himself could come down and resurrect this cast.
If he's bad, you can chalk it up to whatever. It's the line. It's he's only a rookie in a COVID offseason or whatever it is. But if he's good, then you're like, well, wait a second. We should be playing this guy more. I mean, you can at least learn. You could learn if he's an elevator. And if he's not an elevator, then he's not a quarterback that you really need anyway, right? Also, I will say about the Eagles offense, like how many shots down the sideline into contested coverage, like the lowest percentage throws you can possibly have in a game. How many of those are they going to call? Because they're not doing anything to help either quarterback.
Look, and here's an interesting thing. I mean, Wentz obviously has followed. He had some good moments earlier in his career, right? But then since the injuries have piled in, he's gotten into his head a little bit, and he's just not there with the throws, the decisions, and everything. Now, granted, they don't have the receivers really. I mean, it's not the greatest cast. I will give you that. But at the same time, he's not doing the things that make you confident in putting those things around him. And it's just amazing to me that they're still in the middle of this race for the East. That's going to be you know what? I'm actually here for that finish. It's going to be fun to watch and see what happens there. So on to you, Zach. What have you learned?
I've learned that the Pittsburgh Steelers fucking suck. And I hate them. And they are shitty. And they are the most fraudulent, undefeated team I've ever seen in my life. In fact, even if they only had 5 wins, they would still be the most fraudulent team I've ever seen in my life. How do you have a home game and lose or almost lose to the Baltimore Ravens with Trace McSorley? How do you not cover 10 points? Fucking ridiculous. A pitiful, downright pitiful showing for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And let me say this. Mike Tomlin, if he wins Coaches of the Year, fraud. Stop the votes. Stop the count. No Coach of the Year for Mike Tomlin. He doesn't fucking deserve it because you got to curb stomp these motherfucking Ravens when you have the chance. They're starting RG3 RG3 and Trace McSorley, they have hardly anybody on this team, and they couldn't cover 10 fucking points. Give me a fucking break, and don't give me and feed me this bullshit that, it's a rivalry game, so it's a tougher one to win. These motherfuckers couldn't even practice. They flew up last night. It's a disgraceful showing, and really the Pittsburgh Steelers should probably be banned from football for at least the next year.
Relegation.
More. Yeah, relegation should be a thing for the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out to Marquise Brown, though, who got his first catch of the year on an amazing 70-yard touchdown. So shout out to him.
That ruined and shattered my life.
Someone lost some money today.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah, I lost some money.
I can't believe the Ravens still had a shot left on that game coming in. I thought it was going to be a massacre, but the Steelers, like I agree with you, they're just this big fraud. They've got some tough times. Even if they go undefeated, they're going to have an early exit in the playoffs. And even if they're playing, someone really bad that shouldn't be, they're going to be out. It's just I have no confidence in them whatsoever.
Like, who the fuck shows up to Baltimore or shows up to their own home field and lets Baltimore do that? A team missing multiple players, and Lamar Jackson's not even that good. But I mean, hell, if Lamar Jackson was playing that game, they would have stomped the Steelers today.
Mm-hmm. As Mike
fucking
predicted.
Ridiculous. It's the most maddening game I've ever watched in my life, and I watched the Philadelphia Eagles play multiple fucking times this year. This is the worst fucking game I've ever watched in my life. It's boring. And people are like, this is the best Wednesday night football game I ever watched in my life.
Well,
okay. Well, no, before you say anything, 2012, there was a Wednesday night football game. So let's not act like Wednesday night football games have never happened before and quit making that fucking stupid ass joke. Be better, America.
Well, also, it's a Wednesday day game. So let's not... Yeah. Put it in the night category.
Yeah. It should be in the night category because it put a bunch of people to fucking sleep.
Such a weird time to make work there and having that game on. Just awful. I watched the whole thing, but it wasn't inspiring enough.
And I agree with Simp Biscuit. RG3 and Lamar Jackson are the same player, just that Lamar Jackson has been healthier his career so far.
Let's say Lamar Jackson, both of his knees.
I agree. Taysom Hill is also the same player.
Yeah.
Until he got COVID.
Yeah, you remember when everybody made fun of Sean Payton for saying that Taysom Hill can be like Lamar Jackson or whoever said that? I don't remember.
It was a Saints executive, I think, or a former maybe.
Hey, if you look at Lamar Jackson this year,
Okay. So I did watch most of that game, or the majority of it, and what have I learned is about Juju SmithSchuster. And I was a big Juju SmithSchuster beginning at the year. I let you guys talk me out of him at some point in time. But here's the thing: even though he scored a touchdown today and everything, he still was only 8 receptions, which I know, great, it's 8 receptions, but it was only 37 yards. I mean, I just don't know. He's an enigma. I've learned that I've got to quit starting Juju SmithSchuster. I don't care if he does get 17 points. I've got to stay away from him because he's just going to be unpredictable. Because he doesn't get that touchdown, it's a weird day. I think there's better points you can find elsewhere, bigger risks you can take. So even though I was a big Juju SmithSchuster coming out the draft guy and kept my faith in him throughout the year, I can't do it anymore. So I think I'm out.
And can we talk about how he's a wide receiver 3 and he drops the easiest passes? I mean, he drops passes that wide receiver 1s should make. I mean, there was that one, I think it was a fourth down pass, and he just drops it because he's the fucking worst. His value relative to where he's drafted to what you're getting out of him, it was a waste. And I tried to warn you. Greenlaw tried to warn you.
Other side.
No, I think it's this side. No, this is that side.
Yeah.
Greenlaw tried to warn you. Just saying.
But he's saying
50% of this podcast knew that he was not a beta male. He wasn't an alpha male. He was a gamma male.
Okay. He
well said, Zach.
Thank you.
He pulled his best Derrick Henry impression today, stiff-armed a guy like 7 yards forward right before his touchdown. That was pretty cool. And he's
how many yards did you say? 39? Yeah, that's a good
37. Hold on now.
37. Wow.
On that play, excuse me, I meant, he did a really nice stiff arm thing, and then he scored a touchdown. And he's going to look great in two-tone blue next year because that's where he's going to
God. No.
Re-sign Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Corey Davis, kiss him goodbye. Juju, come on down.
That's a downgrade. That's a massive downgrade.
I'm a Juju SmithSchuster guy, and I don't want that. No, thank you.
I'm not telling you what I want. I'm telling you what's going to happen.
It is not going to happen because this locker room is not going to want fucking Juju Smith-Schuster here.
You should, Max.
You should, Max.
Should.
Derrick Henry would have all the points in the world.
You don't, Max, and that's why you don't draft Juju.
You get a point for every pound the defender weighs over you, too. So that's how that works.
Well, for Derrick Henry, you wouldn't get any
anything
points.
for Josh Norman, but he gets for Grover and Stallworth, he gets lots for those.
Yeah.
All right, so I did see a couple questions come in. Just Max did have his first question of the day. Pick 2, Kenyon Drake, Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen.
What is
Cooks
Adam
has to be in
Thielen's?
here, right?
What is Adam Thielen's status? I will look that
Oh,
up.
he's back. He's back. He's already been
It's
activated.
gonna be easy if Thielen's out because last I heard he may not play. But if he's
It either
back,
happened early this morning or late last night.
Yeah.
That happened.
It does say he's expected to play this week, so that's good.
Yeah, I just told
let's
you.
start there.
You didn't have
And
to double check me. I told you.
They play the Jaguars, who have a horrible pass defense. We've talked about it on this show a lot, how bad the Jags' pass defense is. So I love Drake. I mean, Drake finally showed up again last week.
Kenyon Drake, not Drake the rapper.
Correct. I
probably likes
dislike
both.
Drake the rap. Well, I don't.
He's
That
a
was gonna
Kentucky
happen.
fan.
Who does Arizona play this week?
He's an everybody fan, okay? Drake's fake as hell. Arizona this week plays the Los Angeles Rams, so I'm actually probably rolling with
Yeah.
the 2 receivers here.
Yeah.
Same.
You have
Feels
to,
like a-
especially if you're PPR, which it looks like
Right.
it may
No, he
be,
didn't mention.
but Cooks and Thielen is where you got to go because with Will Fuller doing drugs and out on the street corner, that leaves everything open for Brandon Cooks to get a lot of receptions thrown his way and a lot of looks, and that may mean extra coverage. But I don't think defenses are really going to respect Brandon Cooks because he is Brandon Cooks, right? But I would
You
say
respect
Cooks and
his speed.
Thielen. I guess so. It is
I think
PPR.
Max-
It's
He does
PPR,
go for
Cooks and
PPR,
Thielen.
yeah.
Cooks
Is
and
it
Thielen.
PPSA, though? Points per stiff arm?
No, it is not
No.
PPSA.
it's a new
But let me
That
give a
goes with the
PSA. on
IDP.
PPSA.
stiff arming anybody anyway. To watch him stiff arm 3 people this weekend.
Now that Will Fuller's done for the year, can I take a quick victory lap or no?
No,
Why
he's
would
done
you
For
take
the
a
year,
victory
that's
lap
why-
on?
Yeah, congrats on
He
your
had a
steroid
league-winning
using
week.
guy.
He had a wide receiver one
Congrats.
week last week. I said he's going to have at least one wide receiver 1 week. He did it last
wow,
He's
you
a
really
top-
shot your shot there.
week.
Take your victory
He
lap.
has been a top receiver this entire season. Does it
He
suck
won't
that he's out
anymore,
now?
right?
Sure, but he's number 8 overall receiver right now. If you drafted him like I told you to in the 7th or 8th round, that is killer value. Is he done for the year now? Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah,
but
that's
when
not
you
a good
drafted,
pick.
I'm going to call
but
him
when
that.
you drafted, you
No.
drafted Will Fuller, you knew he was going to be done for the year.
What was
the
his
rule
ADP?
is
Do you, Ryan,
like
is it really a
75,
wash
80?
for a guy you're drafting that high and you're saying, but actually he's going to be out the entire playoff?
I mean, you didn't draft him that high. That's my point. You got him. As
His
a,
ADP, it ended up being in the 5th round.
that seems
too
high.
high.
Well,
I would
that's
take
what
him in the
Fantasy
5th
Football
round, though.
calculator says.
I mean, I would take the number 8 overall receiver for the first 12 weeks of the season in
Right.
the 5th round. I
I'm
mean, you have to
calling it
figure it
a wash.
out.
I'm calling it a wash to be nice because the only reason he made it through this season as much as he did was because he was drug aided. So
So you knew you were going to lose Will Fuller for some period of time. You didn't know it would be because of this, but you knew you were going to lose him at some point. I want
Yeah,
to
but
address
draft him in
scared
the
of
5th
Cooks.
round. Ugh.
Scared of
Well,
Cooks.
he has a question below that.
Yeah,
too,
you got to
which
go to the
ties
question
into it.
first.
Okay, we can answer his question.
let's just dive into that then. I think we gave Max his answer. So Trey S says full PPR, bench 1, Deontay Johnson, Braden Cooks, or Robert Woods. Thanks, fellas. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that Woods is probably going to be in here just because Big Woods podcast, or at least Justin Graver's is.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Woods has been awesome, and he goes up against the Arizona Cardinals. And I will say this, a Cooper Cup game is on the horizon in Arizona, so be very careful about Robert Woods. But
Well,
I would say Robert Woods, who the Steelers play next week? The Redskins. I would go Cooks and Woods.
Who?
Who?
Cooks and Woods.
No, who do they play?
Who?
The Washington football team, exactly like I said it.
Right, of course, that is what you said.
Exactly like I said, Washington football team.
Yeah, as we learned last week, Woods and Cup can both go off in the same week when the Bucks, not last week, but the Bucks game, Rams-Bucks, when they were like the 2 best receivers in the same game in years. So I probably don't play Deontay Johnson out of these 3.
Yeah,
Gotta
I'm
bench
with
him.
you.
I don't either. I think
Cool.
Cooks is like a must start, honestly.
And
Washington's-
Deontay Roethlisberger may not want to look Deontay's way next week with all the drops he had against the shitty Baltimore Ravens that the fucking Steelers shouldn't have lost to.
They
Also,
didn't.
Or, well, the
Football
lost the
team is
spread
third
too.
best
Lost the
against
spread too.
wide receivers as well.
Yeah.
This could happen, and it would be epic. It'd be like when the Chiefs were terrible that one year and they beat the Packers, who were like 11-1 late in the season or something like that.
Yep.
This could happen. I mean, it's not going to. It's not going to, but it could.
Yeah, I agree, Trey. He is a target hog, which is why I kind of sat there but they've got to have their downturn is coming at some point, and they've been skating by, in my opinion. So I don't know. I agree with them. I'm with Cooks and Woods and that. But you're right. He is a target hog, but there's also a lot of other weapons there. I mean, crap. Juju's going to go off again for like 10 receptions and 50 yards.
Huge game for Juju.
That's the Steelers' offense. The Steelers' offense is just get the ball out of Ben's hands as fast as possible and hope the receivers can like pick up yards after catch, because he's only throwing deep to Chase Claypool and drops McGee, a.k.a. Deontay Johnson.
Drops McGee. All right, so I don't see any other questions in the chat as of right now. So get those in there, see if there's anything. I know the playoffs are coming as well, so if there's any tough decisions you want to talk about. Sim Biscuit does have a question. Your better receiving class, 2019 or 2020? I'm assuming towards fantasy. Well, why else would he be asking? So that's interesting. So what do you guys think? Better class last year or better class this year?
Well, it's got to be last year.
Yeah.
You got DK and AJ, right? And that's almost good enough by itself to be better than this year. I mean, there are some really quality guys. You got Justin Jefferson, you got T. Higgins. Both of them have been really good this year. But the other two are, like top 5, top 10, top 7 wide receivers, right?
And they were even that way last year, because you also got to remember Terry McLaurin is in last year's class as well. Debo Samuel is in last year's class as well.
Deontay Johnson drops McGee.
Yeah, drops McGee.
Yeah. That might make it worse.
But I mean, when you look at it, it's like, I think he just cut out. It's like there's AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and who else did I just fucking say? Debo Samuel. Samuel. Darius Slayton would have been a good one too. I mean, but when you look at this wide receiver class, it's very top heavy, and you go Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I guess T. Higgins, but I mean, I wouldn't say T. Higgins is if he's the second best in this class, he's nowhere near the second best in the class of last year.
You
so
could say
it's definitely
CeeDee Lamb
2019
with Dak, and you could say Brandon Ayuk when he's been healthy. Both of those guys have been really good, but because of their circumstances, the other guys are,
I will say the same thing about Jerry Jeudy circumstance-wise, because Drew Lock, as Greenlaw has been saying for literally years, Drew Lock is terrible. And everyone else that's played, I mean, Kendall Hinton is about the same level. Just kidding. But
well, as rookies, though, if you're looking at rookies, I think the 2019 class has 2020 beat. But I think if you're looking at the future, I think the 2020 class will probably end up below the sheer numbers of the 2020 class that are actually good. Because you got to remember, Henry Ruggs, Michael Pittman, all been plagued by injuries. If they get their career back on track, the 2020 receiver class will look a lot better than 2019 receiver class, in my opinion. In the long run.
Who will never look good, though, is Jalen Reagor, who we said stinks, and he will always stink. And Philly looks so foolish for drafting him over Justin Jefferson.
Stupid.
Yeah, and Hinton, I'll say this. Hinton is just as good as Tom Brady because they have the same stats against the same team. So you know how this NFL works. If one quarterback does it against the team, he's the same level as the other quarterback does against the team, right? No? Okay. Sorry, bad joke there.
The Steelers might have lost to Kendall Hinton today. I'm going to say that right now.
It is interesting that the Bucs, they beat the Bucs by more than they beat the Kendall Hinton-led Broncos. But one thing about this class that's really hard to evaluate is it's kind of been a down year for rookies across the league. And John Glennon has an article that's about to go live on Broadway Sports Media as soon as this live stream is over, because that's when I'll publish it, about how the 2020 Titans draft class has basically no-showed this season. But a lot of teams are dealing with that with their rookie classes. Yeah, there's some Chase Claypools out there who are excelling as a rookie, but it's been a tough year for rookies overall, so it's hard to evaluate.
And Chase has really fallen off lately, by the way. Yeah. I mean, he has not been consistent like an A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf and stuff like that. And you know me, I'm a big Chase Claypool guy. I was all about some Chase Claypool.
I just want to say your ability to predict Cooper Kupp has been on par with my ability to predict Chase Claypool, who I said this week was not a game for Chase Claypool. I said last week was a game for Chase
Well,
Claypool.
except when you said that Chase Claypool would not be the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, and I told you that he would be, and I told you that Chase Claypool was the guy in Pittsburgh.
Deontay still leads the team in targets.
Well, if you don't do anything with the targets, doesn't matter.
Speaking of Deontay, I skipped a little bit because this one's about Deontay, but
Okay, you skipped a little bit. Hate yourself more watching Tyler Lockett go off on your bench or choke in the starting lineup. Drops McGee, also an option, PPR.
You always start Tyler Lockett. I don't understand people that want to bench him. If you're other, who are your other wide receivers? Like,
it looks like it's between Lockett and Deontay here, at least.
You're right, but who are your other wide receivers that Tyler Lockett is your third option? I guess it would be a better thing. I mean, I'm always starting Tyler Lockett. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, we say it all the time. Start your studs. And this is the week before the playoffs. You have to, bank on those guys.
And it's a tight race. I mean, like, the NFC West is a tight race. And his other one's Michael Thomas. I mean, I would be starting Michael Thomas, Tyler Lockett, and Deontay Johnson if I could. I don't know who you were starting in the flex. I mean, I know we're getting into like tell us your whole fucking whole fucking roster, but I mean, like, it's just so confusing because Tyler Lockett and Michael Thomas would be every week starts. In fact, let me say this: I may even bench Michael Thomas out of the two because Taysom Hill's the one throwing him the ball. Look at the quarterback.
Well, Taysom Hill had his best game of the year, or Michael Thomas had his best game of the year with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
He only had like 2 games this year. I mean,
well, he scored, I think, 19 points. It was impressive. It was the only good game he's had this year.
But
he's only played 2 or 3 games, guys. I mean, we gotta settle down on that.
Right,
I don't think you can bench Michael Thomas.
He's played 5 games, and 4 of them were single-digit outings. One of them was 9.
Who's Seattle play this week? They're on bye, right?
No, the only 2 teams on bye are the Bucks and the other team that's played 11 games already. In the same division. Panthers? No, that doesn't sound right.
Playing Seattle's playing the Eagles.
Oh, no.
Seattle just played the Eagles.
This stupid. See, this is what messed me up. Seahawks, all the sites I'm looking at haven't updated yet.
Okay,
Giants.
Panthers
and Bucks on bye. Seahawks play the Giants.
Well, you got to play this. You got to play Tyler Lockett, and you got to play. You got to play the other one, Michael Thomas. I guess they play Atlanta again. Who knows? Yeah. Well, we told everybody to play the Raiders. All your Raiders players against the Falcons. How'd that turn out?
Well, Derek Carr didn't even go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium last week, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, Taysom Hill may miss it.
I'm glad
he may just drive right by it, while he's doing his Uber or Lyft or whatever the fuck he does.
I'm glad you went back to this
probably
question.
runs. That's the only thing you can do.
I wanted to bring it up while we were talking about Metcalf just a little bit ago because it's actually a very interesting topic here. Is the media off some type of drugs comparing Metcalf to Megatron? And Metcalf got mad the other night because because he was saying, "You're not." I was in Swartz said I was in Detroit. You're no Megatron yet. So what a weird thing to say before a game. Try to give a guy next.
He's just trying to psych him out.
That's fine.
But other people did not like it. I thought it was.
I mean, he was right, but it seems like a weird thing to say. Why would you say that to a guy who's going to get pissed off by it?
Well, maybe he didn't think he was going to get pissed off by it, or maybe he thought he was going to get in his head about it. And even if he is pissed, sometimes when you're angry or enraged, sometimes you don't play your best either. It's not like you're automatically focused.
I think most people get the chip on their shoulder motivation when they hear that.
Yeah, but can you do it that quick?
I wish I had known about this because I would have flipped my DFS lineup that had Tyler Lockett in and put Metcalf in instead because Tyler Lockett, it was like a primetime game, just felt like one of those opportunities for Lockett to go off for 3 touchdowns, and he completely didn't even show up for the game. But Metcalf versus Megatron, what are your guys' thoughts on that comparison? Because I think it's not really a great comparison,
it's
to be
not.
honest.
Megatron is like this, generational type athlete, and DK Metcalf is really, really good, but he's not that guy.
It's the eye test versus the stats, right? Because I think I saw something after this story ran out, and I've been searching for it, and I can't find it again to give you the exact numbers. But Metcalf actually has better numbers at this point in their careers when you compare it. Now, go back and see who had what. I know that Calvin Johnson was coming fresh off of college. You didn't really throw a ton, so maybe he was still getting used to what he could do on a consistent basis. I'm not sure. Bad Georgia Tech joke there. But here's the thing is that you see what Calvin Johnson did to defenders and just what he did for an extended period of time. And Metcalf may be kind of in the same, like cut from the same cloth or something like that. He's not there yet. He may get there. And I think that's what Schwartz was trying to say is that you're on your way. You're not there yet, but you're on your way to being him. And that's like how he tried to spin it. It's still, Metcalf took it as an insult, and that's why he went off, and good for him. But it's interesting. It was interesting to see afterwards that the stats did favor Metcalf in the situation. So, but again, that's when you're talking about and we'll get to catchable and uncatchable balls if y'all want to have another disagreement here in a second. But that's the thing though, is that I'd never had a doubt watching Calvin Johnson that anything would be caught because he just had this radius that seemed like it was a football field wide.
That's the difference to me is that Megatron was a freak athlete with natural hands ability. DK is a freak athlete, but he kind of cradles the ball. He doesn't seem like, how the way AJ Brown can just with his eyes closed, pluck a ball out of there, or Odell Beckham, or anyone with supernatural hands. DK Metcalf is like a cradler, which can work, and with his physicality and his size and his speed, it does work. But that's the biggest separator to me, and that's what I think keeps DK out of that generation.
Also, do you want to know who the Detroit quarterback was in Calvin Johnson's rookie season? Because DK's got rust, but John Kitna was the quarterback for the Lions.
Former NAIA player, John
Future
Kitna.
Hall of Famer, John Kitna.
Yeah.
For what?
I don't know. Quarterbacks coach. I mean,
better than Dan Orlovsky running out the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, both on the same team. What a room.
Yeah.
What a franchise.
Megatron is probably, and he
Eddie
probably needs to be in the discussion as one of the best wide receivers versus the talent that he had at quarterback. When you compare, Randy Moss, he had pretty good quarterbacks his whole career, and then you look at T.O., he had pretty good quarterbacks, and you just look at it. Megatron had shit. I mean, he had complete and utter crap, and he was doing stuff that nobody else could do. And it's
get tackled at the 1 yard line 5 times in one season.
Yeah. You talk about generational talent, and they're not the same, right? I'm about to say is not the same. Tyreek Hill to me is a generational talent that I think everybody's underappreciating. The dude can catch, he's got speed, he's got strength. It's unbelievable some of the stuff that he does. And
it really is.
Granted, Patrick Mahomes is throwing him the ball, but he was doing that stuff kind of with Alex Smith too. So it's someone that needs to be recognized as probably a top 3 wide receiver. What is everybody laughing at?
I do want to say no one has wasted generational talents more than the Detroit Lions. They had Barry Sanders, they had Calvin Johnson, they had Matthew Stafford, and they had John Kitna. I mean, how do you waste those 4 guys? It's unbelievable.
If they would have had Joe Flacco, oh my God. Joe Flacco to Megatron, that would have been so elite.
Can we get to my dad's question so he stops pestering me about it?
I lost it on the chat, so you have to bring it back up. So he says, Jay Graver, with no relation, I guess, your father, says, pick 2, Gallman, Duke Johnson, or Davis.
I'm tired of Wayne Gallman. I don't even want to say his name.
Why?
I hate him.
Why are you tired of him?
Because he shouldn't be scoring fantasy points. And I'm so sick of him. Is he? Because now Daniel Jones is gone. It's Colt McCoy back there. I mean, is he still going to score points? And they play the Seattle Seahawks. Look, I don't know. And then Duke Johnson sucks.
I think Davis is on a bye this week. So,
yeah, that's true. Davis is on a bye.
So definitely don't pick him. I think I would go Zeke and Gallman, even though I hate Gallman as well.
I don't know, man.
Worked for me last week, and he did pretty well. So I don't, I'm still thinking while he's there.
We know, but he shouldn't be this good. Eventually, it's going to come crashing down for you.
I agree.
They are starting Colt McCoy, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, it has. Daniel Jones said in his press conference today that he's going to try it out, but I can't see how he goes. It was apparently
he didn't even practice today.
Yeah,
so maybe I'm going
they said he's going
to
try on Sunday, but yeah, I would go Zeke and Duke, and the Texans play the Colts. I don't know if DeForest Buckner's still out. Apparently, he did have COVID. then I'm definitely playing Duke Johnson. And we saw something very promising from the Texans on Thanksgiving. First of all, they get extra rest to prepare for the Colts. Secondly, they finally threw the ball to Duke Johnson. They threw it to him down the field, and it was awesome. He finally caught a pass. Like, maybe they are waking up a little bit there. Romeo Crennel is not so old.
Well, Will Fuller. They're going to have to throw it to somebody.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I don't really trust Zeke right now just because I've seen it. He looks lost. He looks slow. He's getting 3-yard gains. You can't trust him to hold on to the ball anymore. I'm almost out on Zeke as a running back at this point in time because the Dallas Cowboys have been a little bit of a mess on offense, lost their identity. Zeke has not been able to be the bell cow like you thought he would have been with Prescott out, and he's not stepping up to the plate, and he just looks a little slower. He's declined to the eye, it looks like. So I in this situation, I'd be tempted to go Gallman and Johnson just because of how Johnson may be used. And Gallman, if he should not be scoring points, he is. They're giving him opportunities, and that's the point. He's getting the goal line opportunities. He's getting the bulk of the carries in the backfield right now.
I wish your dad would have came through the back door because it's positioned so perfectly and just handed you his question to ask.
Yeah, Dad, get up here. Would you feel
why is this able to happen?
Yes, I'm home right now. I'm not in LA. I'm back home for the holidays. Anyway, would you guys feel, how terrible would you feel if you benched Zeke, your first round draft pick, with fantasy playoffs on the line, and he goes off for 2 touchdowns?
Who they play this week?
They play the Ravens on Tuesday night next week to give the Ravens ample time, which probably means they have Brandon Williams was back tonight. Yeah. It probably means Calais Campbell's back. It probably means most of the COVID guys are back. So it's pretty tough.
Yeah. Ooh, you may. I don't want to.
But the Ravens suck, Zach. But the Ravens suck, Zach.
Suck tonight. Their defense sucked tonight. It does not mean that their defense is going to suck when Brandon Williams, Calais Campbell, and all the guys that they're missing are back.
Also, they
have to start Wayne
Henry
Gallman
really
and
well.
Duke Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's what he's got to do. That's a really gross decision.
Yeah, it's not great, but at the same time, if those are your decisions, you have to. And I know it sucks putting what potentially first round pick because I think I've got Zeke in a league where I picked him in the first round, maybe the sleeper league we're all in, and I'm going to be benching him. I benched him last week, so I mean, it's not. Maybe I didn't. I meant to. I still beat Greenlaw though, so whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't think he falls under the start your studs category anyway because he hasn't been a stud all year.
True.
There's a difference. Like Tyler Lockett's been amazing for the majority of this year. Zeke has never been good this year.
Yeah,
you got to play your
since Dak went down.
Yeah, you got to play your probabilities, and Lockett's been more good than bad by far. It's not even close. Zeke has been way more bad, and it hasn't shown signs of being good. So I'm out on Zeke right now until he gets it figured out, which is surprising to me because at one point in time, I had made arguments that he may be the best all-around back, before Christian McCaffrey figured out how to be used and all that good stuff. But I thought Zeke as a true running back was one of the best. Now I'm not even sure I've got him in my top 10, top 15 the way he's playing.
I will say the following week, the Cowboys get the Bengals. So that's probably when you roll Zeke back into your lineup.
And let me say this. It's going to be so fun to get Zeke in like the 3rd round next year because everybody's going to hate Zeke after this year. Like, it's going to be legit. Nobody wants to drive Zeke in the 1st round next year. It's going to be wild stuff.
He was. Do you guys want to do this stiff arm question?
Yeah, sure. I think I caught a bit of it, but so he's saying if you had a fantasy stiff arm top 3 or top 5 picks, well, Derrick Henry's number 1. We can just with a bullet, we can get that out of the way. He's who you're taking, but who else would be on that list?
Is there anyone?
The stiff arm received. Does that get you points? Like Josh Norman would be really high on this list if that was the case.
Stiff arms received.
Or anyone on the Jag defense.
I would say AJ Brown would be another good stiff arm candidate. And then Corey Davis would probably be good. Woo! And then
Nick Chubb is a good one. Simp Biscuit.
Okay, we got pick 2. Corey Davis, Deebo Samuel, Gajans,
CeeDee Lamb, and Mike Evans.
Okay. Oh, Evans. Not Thielen.
Note.
Thielen is in.
Thielen is in.
We're living in the
It'd be a lot better if you just read it to us instead of
This is what Santa's handwriting always looked like to me.
So. I wonder why. I'm serious. I am dreading that conversation. My daughter's getting to the age where it's going to be, she's already starting to figure a few things out about Santa and some stuff about Tooth Fairy. And I'm just like, I'm dreading that because both my daughters get so happy about Christmas and everything.
What do you mean? What's the big deal about the conversation?
This is a family show. They're all real. So let's keep it rolling.
Okay. So your dad said Corey Davis.
Tirade. Steelers not tirade a while ago.
Yeah, so my dad needs to pick 2: Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, Corey Davis.
Can we
Titans
talk
play the
about your
Browns.
dad not knowing his players are on bye? Because Mike Evans is on bye week.
Yeah, my dad waits for the fantasy lineups to update so he can look at his ESPN and it'll show it. But because it's this stupid Wednesday game, the ESPN hasn't advanced the week yet. So I'll cut my dad a break on that one.
Okay, so you go Mike Evans, Corey Davis.
Well, not Mike Evans. So Corey Davis, Deebo Samuel, or CeeDee Lamb. Pick
Corey
2.
Davis and Deebo Samuel.
Yes.
Easy.
Agreed.
Easy.
Although CeeDee Lamb
Don't
caught a
overthink
heck of a touchdown pass from
2 weeks ago.
No
Yawn.
Denzel Ward for Cleveland. Cleveland's pass defense sucks. There's going to be a lot of play action passing versus Cleveland. You go Corey Davis, and San Francisco plays who?
San Francisco plays the Bills.
There's going to be some.
Then, like anybody can score on the Bills. You got to go Deebo Samuel.
The only
Speaking
thing
of
that worries
stiff
about-
arms, he would be a guy that would.
Yeah,
would
that's what I was
draft
gonna
stiff
say.
arms.
That's what I was going to say.
The only thing to worry about with Corey Davis in this matchup is there's going to be a healthy share of some two-man heavy routes, and the Titans a lot of times will not just run that with 2 receivers. They'll like to run someone with speed down the field and have A.J. Brown come into the middle. Sometimes Corey Davis is left out. Sometimes he's in blocking just to kind of show. I mean, he may or may not be on the field for those kinds of things, but I still think he'll have a pretty decent game. But the reason I'm saying that they're going to have to go to some chip help is because I think that with Myles Garrett coming back, the tackles are going to need that extra bit of help. And a lot of times the Titans, when they bring in those extra blockers, they go to those two-man routes and try to take their shots in the play action game when they're sucked into the box trying to stop Henry, which is smart football, but it also limits to how many receivers you have in the routes. And it's just a numbers game at that point.
Yeah, they'll do the thing where they put Khalif Raymond out as the only receiver and run that underneath with Ferkser or something.
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah, and they'll leave.
I wouldn't worry about it.
I wouldn't worry about it either, though. I think Davis will get his 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown for Davis.
I mean,
week.
I think that's a good concern. I just personally, out of the options he's got, I wouldn't worry about it because I'm not starting whoever else you said besides
CeeDee
Mike
Lamb
Evans.
against the Ravens.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb. I'm not starting
And-
CeeDee Lamb.
Mike Evans
Corey Davis is
bye, so you don't want to do that.
Corey Davis has been great this whole season. I mean, when he's been in the lineup, he hasn't let you down. You know,
Well, he did once.
Help on a team.
One
trying to
game.
decide about your future. It's just
Chicago.
man, I'm glad he's doing it though.
Yeah.
For sure. Is Derrick Henry the greatest running back of all time?
Yes.
No.
No, because here's why. He's very, very, very good on the Titans offense and
At what he does.
on the offenses like the Titans.
Well, he can only do what he does, so
Right,
he's
I
the greatest
understand,
running
but-
back of all time.
The whole time.
He's
Let's be
definitely the
real,
greatest
guys.
Titans running back. Oh, do you really want to be real? I mean, okay, well then no, he's just like probably like top 15 or something like that, top 10.
He could end up in the conversation if he
Yeah.
continued. But think about Chris Johnson had 6
He's better than
straight-
Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson, 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. I don't know if Chris Johnson could ever put the team on his back in the playoffs like Derrick Henry did and go set playoff
Well, he
records.
could
That
have.
matters.
He saw it.
Well, he got bent in back and broken against the Ravens when Derrick Henry turned Earl Thomas into a lead blocker for himself. So
He's better.
maybe-
He's better than Chris Johnson.
He's not better than Earl Campbell.
Debatable.
No, that's just the Texas in you talking.
Hook
yeah,
him, baby.
it's
I still
debatable.
don't think he's better than Barry Sanders either. So
No, he's
Right.
definitely not better
Exactly.
than Barry Sanders.
So he's second best all time.
Yeah, second best of all.
go that. Well, Humphrey's hurting the Titans' value if he comes back. Maybe Ferkser's, because that's essentially been your replacement. And I know that they run a lot of routes at the same time, but here recently, I mean, Ferkser's numbers are on it's best in his career right now if the season stopped 2 weeks ago. And so I just think that Humphreys being out has allowed Ferkser to be more of that third down guy, that more dependable guy, that safety blanket in a lot of the routes. And like Justin says, he's running a lot of the unders, and he's a fantastic big bodied receiver. He's not really even a tight end, even though that's the position he plays. He's more of a big bodied receiver. So, and with the Titans like to use Swain and Johnny Smith blocking and a little more closer in line routes like that, Ferkser's a good option to have, especially with Humphreys is out. Humphreys gets worked back in. That's the person I think will see a little less reps in the routes possibly.
I will say this. Does it hurt his value in fantasy terms? No, because if you have Anthony Ferkser and you're trying to start him, you got some problems and some issues.
point.
Okay.
Sorry, I keep
So-
going football
Yeah.
stuff to the fantasy. My bad. guys.
Well, I think a couple questions are coming in. Hello, Lucas. Are we giving up on Adoree being healthy? Is another question that came in. No, I think he'll be healthy.
he'll be a perfect trade.
It's just simple.
Like
Just don't even worry about it.
If he doesn't play until the first round of the playoffs, that's enough. I mean,
But
that's
it has
plenty.
nothing to do with fantasy football because we do not talk about IDPs.
Very true.
So how about we answer this question that you guys keep skipping every time I put it on the screen?
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I think he is. I think he is a must-play going forward.
I mean, it's always going to be somewhat matchup based, but unless he has a really, really tough matchup, yeah.
He was already like a fringe wide receiver 2 every week with Fuller, and I think his role expands.
Yeah, and Deshaun seems like he's cooking a little bit too, right? So you've got to have somebody in that offense that's going to.
Well, I think the meal is about to go sour.
He was cooking on Thursday, that's for sure. Serving up some family.
The only thing
against the Lions, amazing accomplishment.
I think they can beat the Colts, and I want them to beat the Colts because A, we want the Colts to lose, and B, I have a bet on the Texans to win 8 games this year.
They have to be this game to get the 8 games?
They can only lose one more, and they're not losing week 17 to the Titans.
Unless we're resting people, but I really don't feel the Tennessee Titans are
not a
franchise
rest-
that's gonna they're not gonna rest.
It'll be interesting
this
at
one.
that point because the way my coach on the coaches' corner, Jonathan Boren, said that they get to 10 wins, they'll probably just call it a season to start sitting people, get ready for the playoffs. So
It depends on the seeding.
Henry.
If they beat Cleveland this week, it will immensely help their chances of locking up the 3 seed. So I could see that kind of situation. But yes, Henry hitting 2K. So he's at 1257 right now.
And he needs like 150 a game or something like that.
147. I'm not going to say
148.6.
Yeah, okay, I was close. So the thing is that even if they don't rest all their starters, you can see them start to maybe mix in some running backs to try to give Henry a little bit of a rest, especially if they have some things locked up. There's no reason to just absolutely risk. Not that I'm saying that Derrick Henry will be tired, because as F Words Pod said this week, he's said on the podcast, he's otherworldly. He doesn't tire down, all this good stuff. So get off the computers, you analytics nerds, and watch a game. So I get all that, but it's not worth the risk. Yeah, I'm quoting you, Zach. It was a great podcast.
Hey, get off the fucking computer, you nerds.
What if they watch the games on the computer?
And go listen to F Words Pod.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Coach's Corner and music. So anyway, plugging everything tonight. But I think that just from a football standpoint, if you get to a point where you've got a seed locked up, or you can't really benefit too much, because I don't think you're getting that 1 seed for that 1 bye. Everything else is just matchups and what path you think you're going to be taking. If you're pretty comfortable going late, then you're probably going to be giving the ball to Foreman more, to maybe some other guys are back. You're going to be looking to distribute and give Henry just a little bit of rest before the playoff run, because then, especially if they go with the same kind of game plan they did in the last playoffs, Henry's going to get a lot of burn there too. So I think that would be the only thing not getting him to 2K, because I don't think they're too worried about personal stats. Yeah, they're nice if they can get them organically. Here's the thing. Now, if he goes off for like a 200-something yard game and this average goes down a little bit, we'll see. And he's got some good matchups coming up. So
that's what it's going to take, though. If the Houston game was not week 17, because Houston's run defense is atrocious, and we already saw Henry go for 200 against them once this year. If that wasn't week 17, I would be a lot more bullish on Henry reaching that 2,000. But because, I mean, we saw it last season, the coaching staff sat him out week 15 or week 16 against the Saints,
but
knowing
he was
that
injured, right? I mean, like
he was injured.
He could have played. He could
have played, but why do you risk the further injury? I
was
think if he's fully healthy, then you're fine.
He was injured enough to run for over 200 yards the next week and secure the rushing title. So how injured was he
Maybe he
really?
didn't get that because maybe he wouldn't have gotten that if he hadn't set out in the Saints week and got injured even further.
It's true.
Possible. But I think that the coaching staff has shown a propensity to be aware of workloads. I mean, we see it with Corey Davis in training camp when he sits out days. Like, I think they're going to be if Mike Herndon's scenario plays out where the Titans win the next 2 and the Colts lose the next 2, Henry may not play week 16 or 17. Maybe
if there's a rushing record on the line, Henry's playing, because we know that Henry wants to get the record, and we also know that Vrabel loves Derrick Henry. We know it. I will always go back to the 2018 season. after the Jets game where Derrick Henry's walking into the locker room and Vrabel waited on him and carried him into not carried him, but like put his arm around the shoulder and was just so proud of him. That was the moment I knew that we were finally going to give Derrick Henry the respect that he deserved as a running back, and no more Deion Lewis and all this stuff. Yeah. That was the moment that I knew, and that's when it all started. Was all the yards, and it's D. Henber. I don't think they're going to have to worry about the workload because the next 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, Cleveland Browns, then the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Flip those. Okay,
Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions. So 3 awful, shitty teams. So he's not going to have, and this is what I said on the podcast, he's not going to have the carries that he's been having to have versus these shitty teams because he's going to break off bigger and longer runs. So his carries will go down, and that will make everything feel a little bit better. And if I'm not mistaken, and I believe Jonathan Boren of the Coach's Corner showed us that I think last year he's on pace for less carries than what he had last year, if I'm not mistaken. So less carries, more yards. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be in a scenario where they're going to rest him unless they for some reason have the number 1 seed and he gets injured at some point with a slight injury.
Do you think that when Darrington Evans comes back, they're going to want to work him in more so his first real experience in the NFL isn't in the playoffs, and that eats into a little bit of his workload?
I think that it's a depends kind of thing. Like, yeah, maybe towards the end of the game, but I think Derrick Henry will already have put the game away or would already gotten his stats. Like, I think that's what you're going to whatever you see McNichols, well, really whatever you see Deontay Foreman getting right now is probably what Darrington Evans is going to get.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I agree with you. I think everybody left on the schedule has a horrible run defense.
Yeah.
The Packers are horrible against the run.
Yeah, they're bad.
So he might have a game like he just had against the Colts or several of those games where he gets to 173 yards and he's basically sitting on the bench for the entire fourth quarter. So, I mean, both things could happen.
And the Packers are going to be most likely in the thick of the race still and playing hard that week. So the Titans might look, I mean, in my opinion, that is a potential Super Bowl preview, but I'm
no. The Packers stink.
I put $10 on the Packers to win the Super Bowl in Week 4 at plus 1,400. So I am all in on the Packers making it from the NFC because then you can hedge that.
Wow, big Packers fan over here.
Yeah.
I am this year. Trade Aaron Jones. By the way, you could have traded.
We don't have time for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I think that Vrabel would want to stick it a little bit to LaFleur as well.
True.
In this game.
Possibly.
I think Derrick Henry would like to stick it to Matt.
Absolutely. You know what?
He's going to stiff arm LaFleur. It's like,
this is going to be your 400-yard game. And then
we got a really long diatribe over here from Cody Wolseley.
I'll sum it up with I agree with Cody. And here's the point. He's saying that we can't compare Henry to guys who had long careers and finished their careers. I agree with you there because a lot could still happen with Henry because he may not even touch anywhere near that depending on how his career goes. He could surpass all that. But what we were asked was comparing him and what we think now. And obviously it's just too early. I think the point we were all trying to make is it's just too early in Henry's career to make that. He's fantastic. And he's really, really, really good. It's fun to watch. And I think that's really all we should focus on right now and just enjoy the ride while it's here. And if he ends up being one of the best ever, know that you took full advantage of watching him while he was on the Titans.
I would not like it if he played till he was 75 years old. That would be unwatchable, I think.
Well, he's not Frank Gore.
Let me say this. I will say this, that for him to say that he doesn't think that he's going to get as many yards as Emmitt Smith because he's not going to play until 75 years old, I don't think he has to play that long to get as many yards as Emmitt Smith. And
what did Emmitt average? 3 yards a carry?
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry is going to get a lot of yards, and I think he's going to play a lot longer than what everybody's giving him credit for. The dude is a machine. He is not of this world. I have said this. We talked about it multiple times. Watch his off-season workouts this past year. He does that all the time and every day and every year, and he's coming up with new stuff. He is a beast and a machine, and I hope he's a Titan for life.
Emmitt averaged 3.9, 3.8, 2.8, and 3.5 yards per carry his last 4 seasons.
So it's a different
That's
NFL.
Really solid.
Right? It's an NFL than it was back then, and that's fine because the Titans aren't exactly a new modern offense, right? So they're still kind of closer to what used to be. So that's why Henry is a little scarier. And I agree with Zach that if he keeps up like he has been, he can get to that amount of yards way before Emmitt Smith did. But Emmitt Smith just had a buttload of carries too, and he just was given the rock. He was also finishing up with Arizona as well, which I don't think was a real great. But when he was on those Cowboys teams, they had some fantastic offensive line, but they were running it a ton, and then they had some great receivers to throw to over the top. So defense were just couldn't load the box on Emmitt Smith. It just was rough. Plus, I'm old enough to remember kind of a little bit what Emmitt Smith looked like in college, and that dude was just otherworldly. So he was a talent back then too. Let's not disrespect Emmitt Smith too much.
And Cody, you don't have to apologize. Like we all fully agree with you. I am just disagreeing with that one thing. That I do think that Emmitt Smith, or I think that he will beat Emmitt Smith's yardage.
I actually don't agree because
you think he's going to be the
Thanksgiving. Emmitt Smith threw away his Galloping Gobbler trophy on the way back to the locker room, and I think they actually took away like 10,000 rushing yards from him for that. So I don't even think Emmitt Smith's the number one rushing leader anymore.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah, that changes everything.
I have to look this up. I'm not sure what the hell you're talking about. It's like
look it up.
I have
they used
another
to give
question
him away on Fox. On Thanksgiving.
I have another question from Jay if you want me to.
Yeah. We'll use this as the last one.
Like things after the game. Is that not the same thing?
No, they used to give away a little trophy.
That was Madden. Okay.
No, they used to give away turkey legs.
Jay is wondering, should I pick up Titans D for fantasy playoffs since they played Detroit and Jacksonville?
I would.
Yes, but they play Green Bay week 16.
Well, then drop them on the championship game.
Get the Titans, ride the Titans to the championship, and then ditch them.
Yeah.
Or, Jadeveon Clowney in primetime against Green Bay. He's had some monster games in those spots.
Yeah, I wouldn't risk it.
He's going to be healthy. He's going to be rested. He's going to be fresh. He's not going to be in game shape. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I would go for the next 2 weeks. Well, next 3 weeks. I'd go next 3 weeks.
Until the
definitely.
Packers game,
Yeah. Yes, AJ Brown.
T.O.
Yes.
100%. And it's funny because Corey Davis is
20%.
A lot of people compared Corey Davis coming out to T.O., but I think AJ is a lot closer. Although Corey,
more physical.
I hope he's back, man. I hope he comes back next year.
Me too.
No, you want Juju,
I love me some AJ Brown. Yeah. I do. I got to see some
prediction
where I'm making that with that comparison. He's the next T.O. T.O. was also special. I mean, I know.
No, you're right. He's the next Randy Moss. How many freaking 40-yard touchdowns does AJ need to?
Legend Randy Moss. Get it right.
Thank you.
And let me say this: if you have never read T.O.'s 2 books, he has 2 books, and if you've never read them, I read them years ago. So good. They're so good. And John Gruden has a really good book out too from about 10 years ago. But the T.O. books are really good. His story about his last-minute pro day in the rain at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, it's something. I don't even want to spoil it. You have to go find that story from telling it from his perspective. So fucking good. I could see why that T.O. wanted to do his Hall of Fame speech at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
And if you've ever wanted to play basketball with T.O., check out the 24-hour fitness in North Hollywood. I used to ball with him there. I don't know if he still does, but I broke my ankle playing basketball against T.O. at that gym. So go meet T.O., get his autograph. I don't know if he still goes there. It was 4 years ago, but hey, you never know.
Congratulations on your broken ankle.
Thank you.
How did you break your, I know how you break an ankle, but were you trying to go for like a dunk on T.O.? And
he was on a fast break, and I was trying to get back on defense, and he went up for the layup, and I went up to try to block T.O. I don't know what I'm doing. And I landed on his foot, and I turned my ankle, and it was done.
Well, at least, that's more claim than a lot of us have as far as NFL prowess. You hurt yourself on an NFL stud, so there you go. That's pretty big time right there. So did your dad get to ask his question? I don't know if we skipped it or what. Is everything?
No, we were talking about gobblers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What was your dad's last question?
It was a Titans D question. We got it.
Oh, we got it. Okay. Sorry. Yes, that's good too. Cody, shorter statements, Cody.
Janu Is Jonnu not fantasy relevant anymore because the Titans are on their third offensive tackle and they have to use him to block now?
No, Zach cursed him. Like I cursed Kyler Murray. Zach
I cursed him.
Jonnu
It's
Smith.
definitely my fault. It's 100% my fault. I am so sorry.
And
Who
I
did I say
started
I
him
was
this
married
week
to?
and he got that nice 0 points.
Who was I married to?
Who?
I don't even remember. I was married to somebody. I don't remember.
Oh,
if they're
I
doing
don't
well
know
or
her
not.
name.
Good one.
The week you missed, Zach, when you were off getting married yourself. So I don't remember either as well. But like, here's the thing, Cody, I'm just messing with you, man. Keep them coming, and please join our other cast as well because you're bringing up some good points. So they're always welcome. Sim Biscuit will have great conversations with you in the chat. He's always active as well. We really appreciate that, John. But Don Jonnu, it has been frustrating because I came into this year very high on him. I said that this was going to be a career year for him, and it's a little bit of usage. It's just frustrating because Jonnu is a great player. He's really turned around blocking. He always had the receiving skills. I was always a little concerned with his blocking. It just seems like he's become such a good blocker. I'm telling y'all, go back and do yourself a favor. Check in on some of our stuff we're going to do later in the week where we're breaking down some of these plays and watch the tight ends, not just the offensive line, but the tight ends, interior Swaim and Smith, were just blocking their tails off. So Smith has really become such an asset there. I think he's kind of done himself a disservice. And here's the thing: if he's not finding that one touchdown a game, he's almost fantasy irrelevant because he's not getting a whole lot of targets. And if he is, he seems to be pulling people away from others as well to get them some targets. So it's just kind of it's kind of a rough go to try to predict what Jonnu Smith is going to do week to week, which he was probably a top 3 tight end in fantasy at one point in time, and he may still be quite up there because of the touchdowns. But he was in the situation where he was a must start. Now I'm kind of like maybe because he's now fallen back into that. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's not great. He's not Travis Kelce, where regardless of what happens, he's going to get his targets, he's going to get his play. You kind of want to play back into that, so it's kind of weird. So
This is an interesting comment that kind of sucks. Of course, the first year the Titans are going to get a home playoff game in years. It's not really going to freaking matter.
Well, we get like 8 fans or something like that in the stands.
Yeah, 8,000 maybe.
it will, but won't it be nice to see a playoff game? And
I think it'll matter more in terms of not having to travel
right
for those
sure.
games.
Especially with COVID restrictions, who knows what they're having to deal with while they're traveling and the worry there. It's kind of nice to have that home game and not have to worry about it as well, and not have to get out on the road first like that. So plus, I'm just going to say it's going to be nice to see that because they're going to have to travel next week once they win that game to somewhere they've been before in a playoff situation possibly. So we'll see what happens there. But it'll be nice to see a playoff game at Titan Stadium finally.
Yeah.
But this COVID, it's been weird all the way around. It's kind of tough to judge rookies. It's kind of tough for me to be real harsh on rookies because they didn't get the same kind of time frame. And then once you get into the season, you can't really baby players along anymore. You can't give them the same kind of coaching they would have gotten during the preseason workouts, the OTAs, all that kind of stuff. They just didn't have your typical experience. It's kind of weird to judge any kind of rookies who are struggling, which makes me think that the guys who are rookies who are excelling are just guys that can be players. And once you get some more knowledge under their belt, they could really take off. So, year 2 for Justin Jefferson will be really interesting in guys like that.
Yeah. Chase Claypool. Yeah. Big time.
What was any more comments? I think we've gone for a pretty good long time tonight. We have any more comments, any more questions that you guys want to cover?
I think we're good.
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you everybody for joining this live edition of the Flex. The Fantasy Overtime is what I'm calling it. So we really appreciate it. And we may try to do this again sometime because we're getting closer to the playoffs. This is real fun to do. So we thank y'all for sticking with us. Look for this to be out on YouTube still tomorrow and in podcast, however you want to consume it. Make sure you're also checking out make sure that you're also checking out BroadwaySportsMedia.com for all of our other articles. We are a partner with 440 Sports. As we say every week, please make sure that you're checking out your Broadway account to switch over to the Heimerdinger Foundation. It was Giving Tuesday just yesterday. 'Tis the season. Give a little. It's really great cause. Even if you just want to go donate to them, regardless, I don't care. Just support something, support somebody. But for Zach, Greenlaw, and JG, I have been Ryan Watson. This has been The Flex, and we are out.
Later.